Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Current History Podcast. Expanding on my previous podcast on education policy, this one will focus on global education and more specifically the impact of artificial intelligence. So I'll be joined today by Dr. Lidia Lozano, a lecturer, researcher, and consultant with the European Commission. We'll be tackling a wide range of issues, including the impact of AI and digital technology on education, global disparities in education, and how organizations like UNESCO are working to correct this. Dr. Lozano is an expert in language acquisition and cross-cultural understanding. She holds a PhD in philology from the University of Barcelona. She has teaching experience at Princeton, Columbia, and Barnard College, and research experience at Harvard University and the University of Barcelona. She's co-authored articles, learning materials, and multimedia courses on language acquisition. Dr. Lozano has also worked in project management and administration at the United Nations in New York and volunteered for UNESCO's Global Education Monitoring Report. Additionally, she has served as a cultural expert for the European Commission and has been selected for inclusion on the European Parliament's list of research experts. So, Dr. Lozano, thank you for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. So what have you seen as far as your work in this space, how artificial intelligence has sort of infiltrated and it's being used more and more? How have you seen it impact your work at this stage?
When I started teaching Spanish as a foreign language at Princeton University, we didn't have any artificial intelligence tools, and it was quite different from today. I realized that new technologies pose challenges, but also opportunities in education. For example, something that I have noticed in my students is that when they write text in the classroom, because of course, if they write them at home, ChatGPT writes them instead of them. So we usually write text in the classroom. They pay less attention to accuracy, for example. And this is something that I have heard that other teachers deal with as well. For example, in the Spanish language, we have very specific endings for the conjugations. So students tend to use infinitives much more often than past tenses or future tenses. The same with gender and number. Instead of using masculine and feminine, they tend to use just the default gender, which is masculine, and the default number, which is singular. So I would say that because AI is interfering in education and their attention span is shorter, their texts are less accurate. That's one of the consequences. Also, perhaps they feel that because AI is already doing such a great work with languages, they feel that they ask themselves, why do I need to be proficient in this foreign language if AI is going to translate text for me anyway and do so much?
I see. So you're saying that there are ways that, due to the way specific languages are structured, where it's really obvious if a student is using AI and when they're not.
That is true as well. At the beginning, I tried to tell them, don't use ChatGPT at home when you're writing text, but it's a lost battle. They use it anyway, and I understand I use it too. So I had to change the assignments that I gave them. So instead of asking them to write text at home, I'm now asking them to send videos, which is much better. I believe that videos may be a much more human and engaging way to learn a language. And I also get to know them better as people rather than just reading a text. So in a way, AI is helping us rethink homework and take home assignments in a positive way. But indeed, if they use ChatGPT, you can see that it's a perfect text. It has no mistakes, or they can even learn how to write some mistakes as if it was written by a human.
So that ties into our next topic, which was AI in the crisis of traditional assessment. So, we've established AI. It's really transforming how education works. And I know you've talked about your personal experience with evaluating students. So how is it affecting more broadly the way universities treat evaluation?
I remember my first years when I taught at Princeton, we used to rely a lot on multiple choice exercises and fill in the blanks. I never really liked them very much because I don't think the students are actually fully analyzing sentences when they have to choose among a number of options. So now I feel that I don't do this anymore. I don't give them those type of assignments and other teachers either, because we know that they're going to rely on AI, and perhaps they were not that good anyway. So we are starting to come up with new ideas in terms of different assignments that may be much better. For example, now my students do many more oral presentations in class. And I tell them to talk about any topic that may motivate them, because now they have so many technologies that can help them build a good presentation. But in class, I tell them they cannot use any text, so they have to use their imagination, their public speaking skills, and it's a much more creative and engaging project. So in a way, I'm very happy about this transformation. And also, I've noticed something very interesting. For example, recently I told them, please choose a painting that you like, any painting in the world from any time in history, and talk about this in the classroom in Spanish. Talk about the painting, describe it, but also talk about the history behind the painting and its author. And it's interesting that a good number of students chose the same painting, even though they could choose any painting that they wanted in the world, which I believe seems to indicate that AI may provide a wide range, an immense number of options, and yet quantity doesn't need to be variety. Probably because of algorithms, students are exposed to the same information. And many of them chose, for example, The Starry Night by Van Gogh or The Nighthawks by Edward Hopper. So that was interesting as well, that quantity may mean redundancy and not variety.
I see. Yeah, and I've seen you speak before of what you call evaluating in a way that reveals the process of thinking rather than just knowledge itself or rote memorization.
Yes, now that they have to be more creative, they have to think by themselves instead of just filling the blanks, choosing the right option, or just reading a text. They are more passive learners. They now need to present their own topics in class, and they need to answer students' questions. So this is a much more creative process that promotes independent thinking and critical thinking. So I believe AI may be good in the sense that it may provide information that then students can present by themselves in the classroom. I also noticed, for example, that students are very aware of the difference between human empathy and AI empathy, or what we call synthetic empathy. And they value very much, and I see it in the reviews, when the teachers are passionate about what they teach and they care about the students' education. And this is something that they can see clearly. I am a teacher, but I am also a student. I'm studying a master's in international relations at Harvard. And I can tell very fast when a teacher is asking me a question because he he's curious about my answer. He really cares about what I have to say, or when he's asking a question just because this is his job and he needs to ask questions. And with my students, it's the same thing. And this is something that AI cannot replace. Real interest and real passion about what you teach. And sometimes they also see that in the way you interact with them in the class, what we call nonverbal communication, the way you look at them and the way you gesture. There's a lot of research about nonverbal communication that reinforces the idea that most of what we communicate is not through language. And this is, again, something that AI cannot provide. For example, when you look at your students in the eyes and you show real interest, this is what they get when they come to the classroom, and AI cannot replace that. Yeah, and I think that's very interesting. I recently read a study that mentioned that the upper face has many muscles, and therefore we are capable of create hundreds of movements with our eyes and with our eyebrows. And that's why eye contact is so important in communication. And that's why when we want to know if someone is honest, we look at him in the eyes. And this is something that the students cannot get if AI is educating them and not a real person. The same with your hands, the way you move your hands, the way you move your body. So I'm very interested in how the human factor plays a role in education, and it's irreplaceable by technologies.
Okay. And how do we teach in this screen saturated world where you don't have as much of this direct face-to-face communication? And I've heard, well, you just heard many educators saying that because students are constantly connected to their phones and screens, it's difficult to communicate in the way you just described. You know, you can't make eye contact. You can't do these nonverbal um, means of communication. So, how has this affected teaching, and how do you think we can get around this problem?
Mm. In many classes, we don't allow any electronic devices. And I think that works very well. At the beginning, the students still bring their tablets or tell you that they need to take notes in their tablets, but then they just learn and they bring a notebook and a pen, and it works very well. So tablets, cell phones, computers, laptops, those are not allowed in my class, and I believe many other teachers also enforce that rule, and it works very well. And you can sense that at the beginning they really want to reach out, they want to take their phone because they have, and we have, not only a psychological addiction to our phone, but also a physical addiction. We like having it in our hands and turning it on and scrolling down. So it takes a while to get them used to not use their phones or tablets in the classroom, but they get used to it. And that's one thing that we can all do. And it's actually like going to the gym. You are training yourself, you're exercising, and enhancing the capacity to live without your phone. I recently read a study about what we call nomophobia, which is the fear of being without your phone. And I find it very interesting, but I think the classroom can be an opportunity to fight against that. And also the assignments that that I tell my students to do, they're just now much more interactive. And I'm getting to know them better at a personal level, and I think we all benefit from that. So assignments are more engaging, human, and interactive now. And in class, we also do more interactive activities. And sometimes they are the main protagonist of their learning process, which means that I just sit in the back and I listen to their oral presentations, which are now very frequent. And I just take notes and I give them feedback. And I encourage the other students to participate and engage in questions and answers as well.
Yeah, that definitely seems like an important way to do it. And I can speak, for myself. I just recently had a class in the same program you're in at Harvard, and we had to do an oral exam in lieu of a general written examination at the end of the class. And I think that definitely worked well. Um, and I think this also kind of ties in. You're talking about engaging students to another concern I have with AI, which is, how do we get um, a generation of people with a more limited attention span, partly due to the presence of phones and screens. How do we design learning experiences to get their attention consistently, so that they're actually paying attention?
Yes, it's very difficult. One thing I realize works well is when they see authenticity, which is something that perhaps they don't see or we don't see so often on the screen. And this is something that I never thought about. When I teach and I'm passionate about what I teach, I don't realize that I'm being authentic. But but it is a very important factor for them. So they cannot get that from AI. They like knowing that their teacher really enjoys what they are teaching and they don't just do it for a paycheck, which takes me to another interesting idea, which is according to a recent UNESCO's report, 50% in 50% of the world's countries, teachers are paid less than any other professionals with the same level of education and number of professional years of experience. And I wonder if teachers are not, they don't receive a decent salary and they see that AI performs well many of the teaching tasks. So they may be less motivated to teach and more motivated to overuse AI to do certain things such as track a student's progress. But then we are losing that authenticity that the students value so much and that AI cannot replace. So this is also an issue that transcends individuals and teachers and students, and that has to do with policies.
Mm-hmm. And as far as specific, when you say policies, what policies are you referring to? Like as far as at the local level, state level, federal level?
Yes, I believe that when we are using AI, we all are responsible for it. Users, for example, need to think critically when they are asking, for example, ChatGPT questions about research or science. They need to try to be as objective and critical as possible. But also tech companies, they need to be accountable. They need to ensure transparency in the way they use algorithms. And also they need to ensure the user's privacy. And finally, governments and other institutions, they need to create norms and rules that ensure that transparency and accountability. And that they also ensure that things like multilingualism and multiculturalism are respected and are visible in the new technologies tools. For example, I recently read that 60% of the world's websites are written in English. We have more than 7,000 languages in the world, but 60% of our websites are in English. This was a report by UNESCO as well that emphasized that AI models are based mostly on the English language and the Western cultures. So that shapes the way users understand the world. So I believe governments should try to create rules and policies that preserve multilingualism and give visibility to all the languages.
I see. Yeah, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, that's probably a consequence of most of the major AI companies being from the United States. So naturally, they were trained on English language sources. But yeah, like you were saying, that's maybe English speakers are maybe, less than 10% of the world population. So there's definitely a large gap there.
Yes, it's very interesting. And also, for example, Spanish is one of the global languages as well, together with Chinese and others. And yet, when I ask ChatGPT, for example, to translate the text from English to Spanish, it is not accurate at all. I would never publish a text like that. I would need to read a lot. So even a global language like Spanish is not ChatGPT and other AI tools don't give you accurate text in that language. So yeah.
See. So yeah, it really sounds like, more broadly, taking a step back more broadly, AI is really kind of pushing us to really rethink in a fundamental way what real learning looks like and how do we contextualize it for students with different needs.
Yes, exactly. And also thinking now, for example, in terms of multilingualism in contexts such as the European Union, where there are such a wide variety of languages. We have 24 official languages in the EU, how challenging it is to provide education that really reinforces the value of those challenges in a world dominated by AI, which is based mostly on the English-speaking language.
I see. So do you think, taking into account everything we've discussed about AI, do you see AI more as a threat to education, or do you see it as an opportunity to make it better for more people?
Mm. I believe it can be both. I believe it is a threat if you rely on AI for almost everything that you do, but it can also be an opportunity. For example, I recently edited an academic book by a Harvard professor on artificial intelligence and critical thinking. And even though I had a lot of experience as an editor, I had questions about the publishing process and questions about marketing. So AI was very helpful in answering those questions for me and guiding me through the process. Of course, you always need to be as objective as possible and critically analyze the information that it's giving you. And you need to ask for more sources to verify those sources. But I believe AI can elevate your professional skills if you use it wisely. So it has many advantages. And my students now, for example, they have so much information out there that they can use to improve their Spanish skills and to improve their public speaking skills and other skills related with communication. However, it can also be a challenge if we overuse it. It can lead to the deprofessionalization of educators if we stop grading our students' papers because we rely on AI, if we stop tracking progress because AI is doing that for us, if we stop communicating at a human level because we ask ChatGPT to draft our emails and we are not even involved. So that is very challenging and that is very risky as well. I think we need to remember that education is not transactional, is relational. You don't just want to convey knowledge to your students. You also want to make sure that they learn and that they use that in their professional careers. So you want to make a difference in their lives and you want to get to know them at a personal level a little bit. So this is not just transactional. They're not just customers, or not the way I see it. And again, they value that very much when they see that their teachers really care. So yes, I would say AI is a challenge, but also an opportunity depending on how you use it. We need to provide personalized education for our students, and AI may help us. It may help us, for example, in doing all the administrative tasks, and that can be very useful for teachers. But we should not use it to replace what we do in the classroom, and we should also remember the human factor and how important it is. And again, the authenticity. That reminds me, I recently read a study on philosophy that mentioned that we all know the two main basic instincts, human instincts, which are eros and thanatos, love and death. And most of what we do has to do with that, with love, with caring for others, or with aggression or destruction. However, there is a third human instinct that we are not so aware of and that has not been so studied. And it's called in Greek thymos, thymos. And it means the need, the human need to be seen, to be heard, to be recognized. And this is something that AI can try to emulate, but not do in an authentic way. And again, the eye contact and the personal contact help us do that. To be heard and to be seen is something that students really, that we all want. So when a teacher is asking a question to a student in class, he values he values it if he knows that you really want to know his opinion about that you value his opinion, that you see him, because that reminds him that he's relevant, that that he exists. But I don't mean that in a narcissistic way, just in the way that we all need to be recognized, our values and who we are. So this is also something that AI cannot do. That's why I don't envision a world where education will take place only online, because we will lose all those important and essential elements and the social capital that we bring to the class and authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to remember, because when we talk abstractly about these things, these systems, it sounds like we're treating students as widgets when, these are actual human beings. And at some level, there's something there that with human systems that AI is not going to be able to replace. Right.
Yes, it's very interesting because AI wants to replace it with the synthetic empathy that we were talking about.
Yeah.
When you ask a question to ChatGPT, it says, "I'm so glad, I'm so sad." It's fascinating because we all know it's a robot, and yet they say those things. But of course, because they are taking information from other sources and they know they need to reply that. But we all know that this is fake. So we crave authenticity that we can only find in human interaction. And that's when real teachers play an important.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'm going to shift over to another topic. So I know we've touched on this, but there's also an international perspective, and we can go into detail to the extent you feel comfortable doing so. But we have discussed, you have worked internationally, including with the European Education and Cultural Executive Agency, the EU, and with UNESCO. So how did those experiences shape your perspective on these changes and the impact of AI on education?
UNESCO, my collaboration with them, which was on a volunteer basis, publishes every year an independent report that assesses how is education worldwide, the differences in education between developed and developing countries. And this is linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which wants to reach parity and equity in education around the world, the same opportunities and the same level and quality of education for everyone in the world. Over the years, I realized that we haven't achieved that goal yet, although, of course, we are working towards it, and that some of the challenges have to do, again, with technology. Only the most powerful countries, the most advanced countries, have access to the most advanced technology. And so that gives them an advantage when it comes to access to education and healthcare and job opportunities. In some countries, some people don't even have access to internet yet, or it's not reliable. So AI, in a way, may exacerbate the gap between rich and poor countries. although it can also be an opportunity because now many more people who can access internet can apply for jobs worldwide. So again, it's challenges and opportunities. But indeed, working for international institutions gave me the chance to see things from a broader perspective and understand a little bit more the challenges involved in education and other fields with the new technologies.
Okay. So, taking this full discussion into account, what do you think the future of higher education might look like over the next decade going forward?
One of my research topics at Harvard as a master's student is specifically how our interactions and dialogues with ChatGPT are changing or will change the way we will interact with people in the future. If we are so comfortable with AI tools when we talk, when we have questions about our personal lives or our professional careers, will that change the way we interact with humans in the future? Will we replace humans because ChatGPT is more patient, is more understanding, or more flattering? So this is a question that I would like to find out more in the future in my research at Harvard. But for what I see in the classroom, I don't think authenticity can be replaced. And this is one of the most important things in education, in the education experience. Evolutionary research shows that humans value very much human interaction and that they pay attention to the way we look, the things we say, the way we talk, and the way we move, as we mentioned before, with the eye contact and how important eyes are. For example, there are other studies that mention that we pay attention to people's hands. And that is because in ancient times, when we saw someone that approached us, we paid attention to their hands because we wanted to see if they were holding a weapon. So these are instincts that we keep today. We still pay attention to people's gestures, to the way they look at us, the way they interact with us. And I hope that that will not change in the future, in 10, 15, or 20 years, that we will value, at the end of the day, the same things that we value still today, which are real connections and human interaction. So the way I see education in the future is hopefully we will use it to our advantage to help us with administrative tasks that we may not have time to do as teachers, and we may not have the funding, and also to elevate our professional skills. The way I mentioned before, for example, my editing experience at Harvard, they will help us polish or improve our professional skills, but they will not replace the human factor. And I hope that applies to education and culture around the world.
So you think basically that AI will be used for the grunt work, the admin tasks, but things like curiosity, dialogue, creativity, and intellectual exploration now remain in the domain of humanity and students.
This is my hope because this is what makes you happy. We get like our dopamine levels, our serotonin levels usually come when we are very engaged in what we do and when we are creative and artistic and passionate about what we do. So if we ask AI to do this for us, we lose a fundamental thing that makes us happy and makes us feel alive. So the way I see the future, yes, hopefully many of us or most of us will rely on AI as a support assistant, as someone who can assist that as in our professional work, but that it will elevate hopefully our work and not diminish it.
And finally, I think well, you said, sounds like the role of teachers will be more using their energy and enthusiasm to guide students and develop a passion for learning, and an interest in learning, that, and a form of empathy that AI will, in my mind, never be able to replace.
Yes, as long as we are working in the right conditions, because there are so many factors that come into place. If teachers are not well paid, the temptation to overuse AI may be greater. So there are many factors that come into play. One of them is the right environment, the right number of students. A language class should not have more than 15 students, because it's very difficult to provide individualized and personalized help and support to students when there are so many in the classroom, understandably. So there are many factors to take into consideration. But if teachers are well paid, and if in the classrooms they enjoy the right context and a good number of students, yes, I believe that education can still succeed.
Yeah. So now that we're coming to the end of the discussion, do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to express?
Yes, I would like to say that in a multilingual and multicultural world, we always give visibility to the great variety of cultures, even within one single language, and that they are all well represented, and that future AI models are based on a greater variety of languages and cultures. Um, there's a lot of research that shows that multilingual speakers are better positioned to understand other people's perspectives, because they have learned several languages, so they know that things may be expressed or conveyed in a variety of ways. And this is what we want in the world. We want people who are able to understand other people's perspectives and points of view, to reach consensus and for a very positive dialogue.
Great. So now that we've come to the end of our time, I want to thank you, Dr. Lozano, for joining for this, I think, really interesting and enlightening conversation on AI and education. I want to thank my listeners for joining in for this. You can listen to the Current History podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to the Substack at current-history.com, where you can get updated or notified when new podcasts post. You can also listen to other written and video content available on the Substack. You can also follow Current History on social media, and you can follow me on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And so thank you again for everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.